Hello, I'm EnterElysium, and welcome back, of course, to Stellaris with the Dorf Despoilers. It's been a little while since I recorded the last episode of this, and there are a few reasons for that. Firstly, there were a lot of games at the time. Secondly, because I was ill for a little while. And thirdly, and I think this is the important one, is I like a lot of stuff they did with the recent 2.0 patch. But there are two things that actually make me... I think... The reason I kept putting off recording this series is because two of the things that they introduced in the 2.0 patch actively made the game less fun for me. Now, I still, of course, really enjoy Stellaris, don't get me wrong. Stellaris is a great game, and it's also a really good gateway game to the rest of the Paradox games. When I've introduced people to Paradox games, I have told them to just play Stellaris, and they've gone, so do you know any other of these games like this? And I'm like, yeah, you wanna try a Hearts of Iron? And they're like, oh, that seems a bit hard for me. You know, like some sort of dealer, I'm just like, you should get on the Paradox games. Stellaris is a good starter. But I've also got feedback from them that they found it gets a little bit boring in the mid-game because of a couple of reasons, and those seem to line up exactly with my issue. My issues are Casus Belli. I straight up do not like them. They're fine, understandable, they're based off political reasons in modern and historical games. In the far future of space, when we control, like, quarters of the galaxy or more, there are enough small incidents that I don't think I need to be able to have to make a Casus Belli, especially when in this game they are so generic as, here's my Casus Belli, enslave you when you're playing enslavers, or conquest you when I'm playing a conquesting race. Like, I don't need to make a Casus Belli and slowly build that up. I should be able to just be like, I'm going to war with you. And yes, there would be a Casus Belli in there somewhere, but we wouldn't need to explicitly make one because we assume that we are a giant spacefaring nation that has dozens of planets under its control. I don't need to individually have a Casus Belli with each individual race, and the tedium of that, it worked well without it. It is an extra layer of complication that Stellaris does not need, and Stellaris doesn't really support, especially the way that right now I have to have a Casus Belli on people that I am next to in terms of a hyperlane. Like, I only have a Casus Belli on them. I don't have a Casus Belli on them. They might be right next to me, and my race can span a quarter of the galaxy, but yet I cannot declare war on you because I do not have a Casus Belli, because I've not got a system next to you. Why do I need a system next to you? There's no reason for that. I can have a Casus Belli on you, but I can't have a Casus Belli on you because I haven't got a system next to you in a hyperlane. The reasoning for that blows my mind. Like, I spend time with a fleet here, and a fleet here, or whatever. Fleets randomly go across, regularly go across dozens of hyperlane jumps to get to their target, but apparently I'm not allowed to declare war on you, because apparently one or two extra jumps to get to the target is just, no, how dare we? You've not got a system right next door. Obviously can't have a Casus Belli. I mean, I might be, an enslaving race of despots, but apparently that's not good enough to be able to declare war on someone. And I absolutely hate the Casus Belli system. Straight up, I just do not like it at all. I think it makes the game actively less fun for me, and I think that from the feedback I've heard from people I've introduced to it and then talked to quite a lot to, who've played it after this, they've been saying it gets a bit slow. There are these bits that are problematic, and I'm like, that's exactly the Casus Belli system. That's for me personally. Now, I know that I might not represent everyone, and from what I can tell, people on like the Reddit and the feedback and stuff seem to like a lot of the changes, so maybe it is just me that I really don't like that change. The other change I don't like is the expansion cost that you have to pay to get into a system. Like, why should I pay to just expand to have this covered by my influence? Sure, they completely changed how influence is done. Influence is now effectively, a stat here. It has nothing to do with your border of your empire. The border of your empire is effectively just halfway between two hyperlanes, and you need to then claim the next system of influence, which means you can sit there. I can own right now, I can own a quarter of the galaxy, and yet my rate of influence will be roughly the same as another nation who's just starting out. I mean, they might have +3 and I have +4, or they have +3, I have +5, because I've got a few bonuses. But they are one planet. They literally just discovered space, and I am a quarter the size of the galaxy, yet our rate of expansions are going to be very similar. Very, very similar, because I'm just gated by the silly expansion thing. In fact, later in the game, I've got more things I need to do with my influence, so maybe they would be faster expanding than me. And it makes no sense to me that there is, effectively, it's an artificial limit, and I instantly suspect that the artificial limit is there for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Alexa, stop. It's been doing that recently. Firstly, I instantly suspect that the artificial limit is placed here to balance the game and to be like, right, well, if someone's doing really well, how do we slow them down? I know, we force everyone to go the same speed. But why? Why do you need to do that? Why do you need everything to be perfectly balanced? We've advanced start nations. Those start strong. We have the ability to choose and upgrade and go for different paths. Looking at other Pirates games, straight up, every one of their games, Hearts of Iron, Crusader Kings 2, European Stars 4, have completely different ways to play depending on which country you pick, and some of them will be much harder, some will be much easier. I don't see why we should have everything artificially balanced to be the same and limit how quickly you can grow, because effectively it's a limit on the bigger empires. The bigger empires before could grow bigger because they had more resources to throw at colonization. And if I want to throw resources at colonization, I damn well should be able to. Now, you know, you might be able to have some sort of soft limit based on the more you're colonizing, the more unrest there is in the empire or something, or if you've got growing too many colonies at once, maybe they could have a bit of unrest happen. And I can see several logical reasons behind that. But the whole influence thing doesn't seem to have a logical basis. I don't see a single reason why, as a big empire, you can only grow one planet at once. I can see an unrest reason. That's quite easy to argue and to imagine. You could be like, well, you're growing too many planets at once. There's too many offshoots happening where small groups of people can think differently and they aren't able to be pressured by the group culture or collectiveness that you have in your empire because they're new, they're going out on their own, they have to be resourceful. That's the perfect way for new ideas to grow. And I can see how they can grow differently, have different ethos, maybe revolt, be like, well, maybe we should be our own, we started up from scratch, maybe we don't need to be connected to the wider culture, the wider... I can see reasons for revolt for that. I can see reasons for revolt in your main sector. They might be like, oh, well, they're focusing on new worlds and we're feeling left behind, or whatever. I can see revolt reasons. That's a great balancer. I can't see a reason to be like, yeah, you need influence to go to that star... Why? Oh, it's a measure of your political capital and this, that... Why should the political capital of someone who owns one system be able to colonize a system, and someone who owns half the galaxy be able to own one system? I see no reason for that. It really frustrates me, and it results in me, right now, owning a quarter of the galaxy. And sitting here for large periods as I slowly get one more planet, so that I can get next to people with hyperlanes, so I can use a casus belli, so I can go to war with them, and I'm a war-based nation. And I sit here, and I wait, and it makes the game boring. That's the problem. It makes the game boring, and it slows down the mid-game, and there might be a reason for that. Cynically, I would look and say Stellaris' problem. Originally, it was the game didn't have much mid-game content. Now, I find, personally for me, that I power through the tech tree way too quickly. Or at least I used to. And I go straight through the tech tree, and I sit there going, okay, so 100 years have passed. I haven't fully killed off most of the galaxy or whatever I'm trying to do, but I finished all the techs. And there were some great mods that I would install, especially in I had a modded playthrough in the last patch. I don't know if that was on YouTube, on Twitch, where I had some mods that basically doubled the tech tree. You got double the length of guns and stuff, and also rebalance them. And that was great, because I was still discovering new weapons as I went on and dominating the galaxy, even on a large map. Cynically, I would say that the lengthening the middle game this way is to slow down you finishing the relatively sparse tech tree. It's not the tech tree is sparse in and of itself. The tech tree's got a lot of options. The thing is that because of the nature of the length of the game, and because you can optimize science quite well if you're clever about it, it can feel sparse if you're going for more than 100, 120 years. And part of me would suspect that maybe it's a cynical option just to drag that out. And the influence thing, combined with the casus belli thing, combined with the fact that I can't declare war on someone over here. Like, if we've got a massive threat looming over here, say the Conclave of Zaplo was exterminating race that just want to expand and start to dominate and control. And I was, you know, one of these heroic, semi-peaceful people who's like, well, we need to take out the threats, but otherwise I want to be friendly. I can't do anything about them because I don't have a casus belli because they're not right next to me. And it's that sort of stuff that really bugs me. Now, a lot of the other patches and things in the tweaks maybe weren't perfect for me. I do still like the ability to have different forms of movement. I understand why they did it, and I was willing to give it a try, and I still think that I personally prefer the other forms of movement. mostly because I liked the variety it gave. It made it feel less homogenous and everything the same. Part of the thing that I have with this is because now we have all this stuff like the distance you own is based effectively on the hyperlane network, because it's always halfway between two hyperlane nodes that your distance stops. The hyperlane network is bases how you can declare war because of the casus belli, and it is the most it's the most cliched and, quite frankly, in my view, boring way to do the map. It is cliched. It's so well done that there's a lot more to work with in terms of how you can devise strong points and tactical vulnerabilities and places to hold people. I totally understand all the reasons for that. Personally, I still favor that, but I can see the reason and I can understand why it's been cut out. Stuff like the shields and the armor redo, it certainly is a lot more balancing, because people have sort of eschewed using shields and be like, well, you can just use armor and you can be pretty powerful. And it felt a little bit different, but it certainly helped balance a certain aspect of the game, which was, why ever put armor on your ships? Which has helped. But those two parts of the game, the casus belli system, which affects the whole war system, and the growth system, which affects everything, because that affects how you expand and also how you get your casus belli, just makes the game too tedious for me right now to really want to continue this series, and I'm sorry about that. If I was to start from the start again now, maybe I'd be willing to go from the start again with a series like this. I'd probably turn up the incidence of races much higher so I can have people at every stage rather than, oh, I killed someone, now I've got open space. Because I'm too good at killing people, so apparently the open space slows me down. If you're next to people, you can declare war on them, great. But with open space, you're basically stopped. You can't do anything. So I'd probably just crank up the number of races and just be like, 30 races, sure. So, I can have casus belli. But much more preferably for me, and this is the important thing, is there are 2 mods I would get, and it's disappointing because the functions of those things in the game are pretty major. I would just straight out get the mod, which is you always have casus belli against everyone, so effectively removes the casus belli thing. You don't need casus belli anymore. And I would remove the influence to colonize a new world. And the problem is that both of those are core game concepts now, and doing that will have ramifications on balance. But I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat, and I'd just say, look, I prefer the game this way. I much prefer the game this way. And I don't find these 2 aspects of the game interesting or engaging. I actually find them detrimental to both my playstyle, both how I engage with the game and how I enjoy the game. And I have got that feedback from a couple of people I've introduced to the game. They've said that, yeah, I've sunk a lot of hours into it. It's a great game. Don't get me wrong. I still think it's a great game. But I have sunk a lot of hours into it now. And at this stage, I'm not looking to get a lesser experience from more hours. I'm looking to play in different ways, to experience growing in different situations. I'm not looking to have that, but worse than I had before, in my opinion, because I do not find it as fun with these aspects. So don't get me wrong, it's still a great game. I still recommend people buy it and play it. Definitely, especially if you're interested in getting into Paradox games as a whole and you haven't played any. Stellaris is probably the best one to start with. I would probably say that Hearts of Iron is still my favorite, but Stellaris is a great way to get started. I would not say that I prefer this patch to the previous one, and that's a tough decision for me, because I do like a lot of the changes, a lot of the UI stuff, the ability to just quickly build fleets and to have them assemble and all that. Absolutely great. Absolutely love a lot of those changes with basically quality of life improvements. Great. Fantastic. Love them. The ability to have the sort of stations based in the center of a system and to have those upgrade and little modules and decisions and stuff, that's pretty cool as well. I do like that. Might still need to be tweaking in the future and balancing and whatever, and, the normal evolution that happens with that. But I like it. I like a lot of the stuff in this patch. But the problem is that 2 of those core aspects do make the game less fun for me, so I won't be continuing this playthrough. Because it would require me to... I couldn't really go and get rid of those things without being like, you know what, if I'm going to do that, I might as well start a new series. I might start a new series in due course, in a few weeks or so. But for now, I'm going to retire this series. I'm sorry I'm retiring early, but part of the reason here is that we have got to the stage where we are bigger than anyone else in the galaxy, but we're also going to have to spend a lot of this time just sitting here, slowly going, I want a new system. I want a new system. I want this system. I want this system. And we were playing a despoiling race. We just go and we grab people. And part of that is the RNG of we started next to a machine race, we can't enslave them. And then we started next to them, and because I didn't have a hyperlane neighbor, I couldn't do the normal casus belli I would against them to actually enslave them. And by that point, anyway, I don't need slaves because I've already maxed out all the pops in my world, so slaves are pointless to me because we'd had no one next door to actually attack. We'd just been slowly expanding via influence. So I don't expect Paradox to roll back the change for those two things. I think that when game companies introduce such major changes and they don't get any major pushback from the community, and I haven't seen major pushback. I haven't seen pushback, actually. I think I've seen people being like, at most. Which is why I'm surprised that I am so critical of it, because normally I'm a little bit more positive about things than some communities can be. And we do have an excellent community. Paradox community is a really good community, don't get me wrong. So I'm surprised that maybe I'm an outlier on this. I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts in the comments below, and don't just reply if you agree with me, also reply if you disagree, or and I mean especially if you were just like, I mean, it's meh, but that sort of, there were no words there. But if you have any opinion whatsoever, I'd be interested to hear your opinion, even if your opinion is just I kind of find it okay, but I'm meh about it. I'd love to hear down below what people think. If you've just started Paradox games or known them for a while, I'd be interested to hear feedback. But for me, in future, I will be modding out those two aspects of the game, or I will be very specifically trying to set up a galaxy where I can just get wars repeatedly, because it's just so tedious to just sit in a game like this where for the last, whatever it was, 3 or 4 episodes, so, 3 hours almost, we're sitting here just clicking on, I get the next planet, I get the next planet, I get the next planet, I build some factories or whatever, mines in the system, but other than that, I just get the next planet. There's not much fun for you as a viewer, there's not much fun for me as a player, and I don't think that's how the game is, even for the game itself, because it's a good game. I don't think that's how the game shines or how it's best showcased. I think it actively makes the game look worse than it is, and the game is still good. I just want to emphasize that. I still enjoy the game, but I think it makes the game look far worse than it actually is as a game. I think that, part of the reason with this playthrough is it did show the worst aspects of those changes because we didn't have anyone nearby, and the people we had nearby we killed instantly. And I think that is a problem, that if you're a good player and you can kill the people nearby very quickly in a game, you are then left with open space and the slow tedium. So it does kind of penalize you as you get better to have less fun because you end up with tedium. And one of the few things I really dislike in games is tedium. I am not a fan of tedium. Which is one of the things I like about, most of the Paradox games. There's always something to do, generally. But not anymore in Stellaris sometimes. So, interested to hear your thoughts. I know this is a very negative video about two aspects of the game, but I'm negative about it, those aspects in particular. I'm not negative about the game. I still enjoy the game. I still think the game is good. I just don't think it's as good as it used to be, but part of that is because a lot of the stuff they introduced, the quality of life improvements, the tweaks and the fixes and stuff like that in the last patch were really good. And so these two, that brings it up, but then these two aspects bring it down. So I do think that overall, I'd probably still play the previous patch if I couldn't mod it, but there are mods for that. There are always mods for that. And I think that would be, probably the right idea is that in future, I'd probably mod those things out. Also, the Empire colors, these thick borders, they look awful. I don't know if it's just me, but I hate them. I just look at this. Purple with a thick gold. I mean, Emperor's Children are into that, but they're meant to be goldy. Blue with a thick orange border. Orange with a thick blue border. There is a mod on the workshop too. I think reduce that border to a minimum, which I think would look cooler. A very thin border might look really nice. I know they were basically trying to introduce the second Empire color into the map mode, so that if you ended up with 2 green empires next to each other, you could still tell the difference because there'd be a second color there. But it's a very thick stroke, and it does look kind of ugly. At least in my eyes. So I will be installing that mod in future. You might also notice that I still have mods enabled right now. I've got like the dark UI mod with the blue buttons, which I love, even if that isn't fully updated. You get the odd button floating here and there. But I'm not one adverse to modding. Either way, let me know your thoughts, because I'm interested to know. And I know that effectively people were going to keep asking where the Dorfs were, and I kept trying to be like, oh, no, I'll record some Dorf Despoilers today. And I kept putting it off, even after, I felt better. because I just wasn't feeling it. And if I'm not feeling it, there's no point in me forcing it, because it won't be as good a video. I think I'd be honest with you. And I also think it's good to talk about those changes, primarily because I'm interested to hear people's feedback and see if it is just me. Because so far, checking online, I did have a peruse of things like the Stellaris subreddit and stuff, just to check if like people were outraged about this or something. And there was no real people going, it's terrible. So, you know, I really don't like it. I don't say I think it's terrible. I just really don't like it. So those aspects, I don't know if it's just me. I'm interested to hear your feedback. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Been rambling for 20 minutes about those changes, but I've been at Elysium. Let me know if you found it interesting. Let me know if you have any feedback or opinions on the changes. Or if you want to see more Stellaris, because, you know, I will put that on ice for a little while and maybe come back to it when I'm feeling less sour about the Dorf Despoilers. So do let me know that as well, because it's always good to know if you actually want to play more Stellaris. But until next time, Elysium, stay shiny.